If you own the Insta360 ONE R, then you'll have lots of questions about the new Insta360 ONE RS. Is it worth upgrading? Should I just get the mounting bracket and the extra battery? What's the compatibility like between the cameras with all the mods? And how compatible are all the accessories? All of this and more will be answered in this video, so let's get straight to it. At first glance, particularly with the 360 mod on, these two cameras look really similar, and in fact the camera uses exactly the same 360 mod and the same 1" mod as the ONE R. There is the new 4K booster mod, which is the same physical side as the 4K mod from the ONE R, and we'll look at these mods in more detail in a minute. The battery size is bigger and has 21% more capacity, and you can run the ONE RS with the 360 mod for around 1 hour 24 minutes, and with the 4K booster mod for 1 hour 9 minutes, shooting at 4K 60 frames per second. The ONE R battery runs for 1 hour using the 360 mod. If you put the new RS battery on the ONE R with the 360 mod, it will run for approximately 1 hour and 20 minutes. Because of the bigger battery, the mount is also slightly bigger and it has been redesigned. It has a quick release side entry hinge to make battery changes and lens changes quicker and more convenient. And this design is really so much more convenient than the original ONE R design, where you had to slide this catch across, flip the top up and then open a door and then pull the camera out of the back of the mount. There's also an integrated heat dissipation panel, so you can shoot for longer without the camera getting too hot. I have tested the overheating with the Insta360 ONE RS, and I shot continuously for an hour and a half, and the camera didn't overheat in that it didn't cut out, but it did still get really hot, and it reached 40 degrees. And I did the same test with the Insta360 ONE R with the 360 mod, and this reached 52 degrees after 1 hour. So the ONE RS doesn't get as hot as the ONE R, but it's nothing really to get that excited about. Both cameras still get really hot, but in the tests I did, neither of them cut out. The other new feature built into the bracket is a windshield for the top microphone, and this is meant to help reduce wind noise. And there isn't any windshield on the ONE R mounting bracket. And the ONE RS also has 3 microphones compared to the 2 on the ONE R. And the sound algorithm on the ONE RS has also been improved, so with all this you'd expect it to be better sound than the ONE R. This is a really good test for the audio on both of these cameras. The ONE RS obviously has the advantage because it has the newer algorithm, the newer core, a better processor. So the sound of the RS in strong wind is better than the sound of the ONE R, but neither produce particularly good results in the wind. The sound is under recorded and there's still too much wind noise. The core of the RS is the same size as the ONE R core, and as well as the additional microphone on the front, there's another difference on the rear screen. Here you'll see this magnifier symbol, and now this isn't a button to push, but it's indicating that if you press on the screen here that you can zoom into your shot. And you can zoom in digitally up to 2.7 times, and the really cool thing is you can do this while you're recording. With the ONE R you can change the frame size, but you either have to stop and start recording to change the frame size, or you have to adjust it in the app after shooting. So the digital zoom is a nice feature to have, but I don't think it's a really big win over the ONE R. And there aren't any new physical buttons on the new ONE RS core for this zoom feature. All you're doing is tapping on the screen, so surely the ONE R core could be upgraded to add on this tap to zoom feature. This upgrade was a really good opportunity to get rid of the awful memory card door on the ONE R. This is the worst design I've seen in an action camera. Nobody likes it, and it should have been axed on the ONE RS, but it's still there with a tiny gap to change the memory card, and you have to pull it off to use certain accessories and then try not to lose it, and then struggle to put it back on. Please Insta360, for the next camera, come up with a better design for the memory card door, because nobody likes it. The updated core brings with it an updated processor, but to be honest, when I compared the images of the 360 shots, I couldn't really see much difference between the two cameras. And the stabilisation is meant to be better, but again I found it really hard to tell the difference. I think both cameras produce really good stabilisation, and both cameras offer quick flow state stabilisation, which means the stabilisation is built into the file that it produces, and it produces an MP4 file, so no longer do you have to export to the app to take advantage of the flow state stabilisation. So the specs of both cameras are really similar, and it's only when you add the new 4K booster mod that things start to look different. The new 4K booster mod shoots 48 megapixel photos compared to the 12 megapixels of the ONE R. And don't get me wrong, this is an impressive number, but if you compare the pictures side by side, at first glance you won't really see much difference. But of course, with 48 megapixels you do retain a lot more detail when you zoom in. The other feature of the boost lens is that it can shoot 6K widescreen video in a 2.35:1 cinematic aspect ratio. I do really love the look of this cinematic aspect ratio, but I'm sure probably less than 10% of action camera users would use this. And if you have the One R, you can always shoot in 360 and reframe to this aspect ratio using the app anyway if you really wanted to. The killer feature of this new mod though, which the One R can't compete with, is active HDR. And this will retain more detail in the shadows and the highlights, and you can keep the camera moving so you can still get those stabilised action shots. The new 4K booster lens has a larger sensor than the 4K mod with the One R, so you'd expect it to perform better in low light situations. The new booster mod is definitely better in low light with less grain and more details in the shadow, and that's even without using active HDR. If you really wanted to use the booster lens though and you don't want to upgrade to the RS, then it is compatible with the One R, so you could just upgrade your lens and take advantage of all these new features. With both cameras, when you shoot for longer periods over 30 minutes, the camera splits the footage into 30-minute files. So to do this, the camera stops recording and then starts recording again. But with the One R, this wasn't seamless, and there were several seconds, I think somebody even said it was up to a minute of footage that was lost in between those file changes. In the test that I did, the situation hasn't changed. You do still lose footage between file changes, but it's only 13 seconds. So this problem is definitely something worth bearing in mind if a lot of the stuff that you shoot is for longer periods. There is a lot of forwards and backwards compatibility with this camera, so here's what you need to know. All of the lens mods are backwards and forwards compatible. The One R lens guards don't fit on the new One RS. The new and old batteries work on both cameras, so you can use the dual battery charger as well. But if you wanted to use the new mounting bracket with the old battery, you'd have to fill the gap to stop it moving around as it's slightly smaller. If you need a cold shoe on the new mounting bracket, this can be bought as an additional accessory and it clips onto the top of the bracket. To use an external mic with the Insta360 ONE RS, there's a new adapter, and the adapter is much better than the Insta360 ONE R adapter. It's a much tighter fit into the side of the camera, so it's less vulnerable to being knocked out. So this is an audio test with the Insta360 ONE RS using the new mic adapter for an external microphone, and I'm using the Rode Wireless Go mic. This is a comparison test for the external mic using the Insta360 ONE R with the Rode Wireless Go. And the really cool feature that I've only just noticed with this camera is that when you plug in an external mic, you get a sound level on the side of the screen, but also when you tap the sound level, you can change the external mic gain. So you can change at what level the mic comes into the camera. The original Insta360 ONE R mic adapter doesn't work with the Insta360 ONE RS. And also, annoyingly, the new Insta360 ONE RS mic adapter doesn't work with the Insta360 ONE R. It does plug into the One R, but doesn't have a firm connection, and the One R camera just doesn't recognise that it's plugged in. The Insta360 ONE R quick reader is compatible with the Insta360 ONE RS. If you haven't got an action camera, then the Insta360 ONE RS should definitely be on your shortlist. But the big question if you're a One R owner is that is it worth upgrading? And the simple answer is no. Not enough has changed between these two cameras, and the difference in image quality is not significant enough to justify upgrading. It is worth buying the new mounting bracket. It's a really good design and maybe a larger battery. And I personally would buy the 4K booster mod, but it's not necessary, it's just a nice to have. If you want to find out more about the One RS, you want to watch this video next. My name's Rich, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.